without without help. So yeah, so I just wanna put that out there kwamba sikusaidiwa. Hii yote ni mimi nimesaidia. So in chapter 4 of Second Chronicles, we read these furnishings in the temple that pick up that the author of Chronicles of the second chapter picks up in chapter 5. And in chapter 4, if you will read it, it talks about a lot of metals and minerals that were in the temple. Just like how we have here, we have instruments, we have sound, we have lights, and everything that was here in this temple. But one thing that I found out is that even if everything that was in the temple, the furnishings, the minerals, the gold, the silver, everything that was in the temple, added value to the temple, but it did not add the holiness of the temple, right? So just because there was gold, there was silver, there was all these precious stones that are mentioned in chapter 4 and started in chapter 5, they did not add to the setting apart of the temple, right? So what is holiness, right? Holiness is a proper noun from the word holy, which is a noun. And if you're taking notes, my title is Christ, the one who sanctifies, right? Christ, the one who sanctifies. Holiness is a proper noun. In Greek, it's hagios. In Hebrew, it's kadosh. Has three meanings: be set apart, consecrated. Second meaning is perfect, transcendent, spiritually pure, not poor, pure, evoking adoration and reverence. Last one is a thing or a person, evoking veneration, or somebody who makes you frightened beyond belief, and somebody who earns you great respect. Theology tells us, or theology tells the people who study theology, that, not me, that God is transcendent, right? Transcendent is a theological term, means that God sits outside of the sum of every creation that he created, right? So God, or Mungu akiwa hapa nyuma, he is the one who spoke life into being. Life and everything into being. We read that in Genesis and everything, the creation story, and still what we know and what we don't know. But he sits outside of everything. He sits outside of everything, and outside of all the sum that he created. Okay. Among the transcendent nature of God, one of the natures about him is he is holy. He is perfect, righteous. Every good and perfect thing is him. And our minds, our finite mind cannot be able to understand an infinite God. We read it in Isaiah chapter 6, how the prophet Isaiah went to the temple, and he had a vision of like God sitting exalted at a higher throne than the throne of Israel. So he is perfect, he is transcendent, and among the standards of him, he is eternally righteous, eternally holy. His character has never changed. The same character in the Bible that we read of is the same character that applies to us today. So, a transcendent God sitting outside of creation, he is righteous and holy and everything good and perfect. Created man and everything so that man can enjoy the benefits and the gifts that he created. But then we have man who sinned against God, right? The fall of Adam in Genesis chapter 3. A perfect God cannot interact with sinful people. But the love that he has for us, for people, that that type of love, that type of extravagant love, is the one that made him come up with a bigger plan, come up with a better plan for him, right? Because he has never moved, always here, he's always here above and beyond creation. But now he supersedes or he looks at creation. But then he was like, okay, so sasa kwa sababu creation yangu imeni torokea na all these things. I still want to be a part of them. So what do I do? So calls a meeting. We don't want to talk about the John 3:16 story. But then he calls a meeting in heaven and he's like, oh yeah, be in Chronicles. So we have seen that all the things that King Solomon put into the temple and everything that he brought, the minerals, the precious metals and everything like that. I want to focus on verse 7, or verse 6 and 7. They came and they were happy because of what God had done for them, for what God had allowed them to do, or on behalf of King Solomon, who God allowed him to give, to build the temple, because David was not the one who was ordained to build the temple. Verse 7 says, then the priests brought the ark of the covenant to the Lord to its place in the inner sanctuary of the house in the most holy place underneath the wings of the cherubim. Wakuhani wakuu wakaleta sanduku la agano kwa temple. Alafu wakaziweka into the most holy place. Right? So back to our example. Mungu akona standards zake. Right? God has standards, and above the standards that he has, humans, without the interactions that God had already made, cannot be able to interact with God outside of the fact that God is the one. Humans cannot interact with God unless they have this thing called a sacrifice, right? The high priests were the ones who are responsible for the sacrifice, right? They were the ones who are responsible to offer sacrifices that are pleasing to God. Okay, so the sacrifices that the priests were giving, they were only able to sanctify temporarily until a better, and that's what we have read in Hebrews, until a better system was established, and that was Christ, and we will get to that. So we read in 2 Chronicles all the sacrifices they were offered. They were offered for the celebration of the temple. God had honored Solomon enough for Solomon to build him a temple, and the people were excited and all these things. Going back a little bit, in Leviticus 11:44, God commands his people to be consecrated because he is also holy, because he's also consecrated, he's set apart above anything that the human mind can be able to attain. So, back to my example, God is sitting outside of creation, and then akona watu wameita Israelites, who are his people. And then people were, giving praise to God, and with trumpets and music and all these things. The glory of the glory of God filled the whole temple, until nobody was able to stand, until everybody was like seated and knelt down and said, glory be to God. They were singing, for he is good and his steadfast love endures forever. Now, the sacrifices that they offered in chapter 5